Today we're going over the extreme survival story of a book that refused to die, the Bible. It's 303 AD, and the Roman Emperor Diocletian is sitting in his palace in Nicomedia. He has just issued a series of edicts that will unleash the most severe and systematic persecution of Christians the Roman Empire has ever seen. These decrees order the destruction of churches, the burning of scriptures, and the arrest of clergy. For Diocletian, the Christian faith, with its singular God and its refusal to worship the Roman emperors as divine, is a dangerous superstition. It's a threat to the traditional Roman way of life, an internal cancer that undermines the very fabric of the empire. The centerpiece of this new religion is its collection of sacred texts, what would later be compiled into the Bible. Diocletian understands that to eradicate the faith, he must first eradicate its book. He believes that if he can wipe out every copy of the Gospels, the letters of Paul, and the other writings that Christians hold dear, the movement itself will wither and perish. The order is simple and brutal. Find every Christian scroll and codex and consign them to the flames. Across the vast expanse of the Roman Empire, from the shores of Britain to the deserts of Syria, the hunt begins. This isn't just a book burning. It's an attempt to erase a story, to silence a voice that was beginning to echo across the known world. For the next 10 years, a period that would become known as the Great Persecution, Christians are faced with a terrible choice. They can surrender their holy books to the Roman authorities and save their own lives, or they can protect the scriptures and risk torture, imprisonment, or even a gruesome death in the arena. Those who handed over the texts were branded as traditors, a Latin term meaning ones who hand over, the very root of our modern word traitor, to their fellow believers. They were cowards who had betrayed their faith for their own safety. The community was torn apart as the pressure to conform and survive clashed with the conviction to preserve the Word of God at all costs. But many refused to yield. Believers began devising ingenious ways to protect their precious texts. They hid scrolls in clay jars and buried them in the desert sands, a practice that would inadvertently preserve some of the oldest biblical manuscripts for future generations to discover. They concealed codices, an early form of book, under floorboards, within the walls of their homes, or in secret compartments carved into furniture. Monks and scribes living in remote communities would work tirelessly in hidden rooms, copying manuscripts by candlelight, ensuring that for every book destroyed, another might be created. Each copy was a defiant act, a quiet rebellion against the full might of the Roman state. They knew that the survival of their faith was inextricably linked to the survival of these pages. Imagine a small Christian community in North Africa. Roman soldiers burst into their meeting place, demanding they surrender their scriptures. The church elder, faced with an impossible decision, might hand over heretical texts or even mundane household documents, claiming they are the sacred writings the soldiers seek. The soldiers, often illiterate and unable to distinguish one scroll from another, might accept the deception and move on. In other cases, entire villages would conspire to hide their one or two copies of a gospel. A single book might be passed from house to house, never staying in one place for long enough to be discovered. This was a grassroots preservation effort, driven not by a central command, but by the shared conviction of countless ordinary people who believed the words in these texts were more valuable than their own lives. The persecution was not uniform across the empire. In the western provinces, under the rule of Constantius, the father of the future Constantine the Great, the edicts were enforced with less enthusiasm. Churches might be torn down, but the hunt for scriptures was often half-hearted. But in the East, under emperors like Galerius and Maximinus Daia, the persecution was relentless and savage. Here, being caught with a copy of a biblical text was a virtual death sentence. Stories circulated of believers who, when captured, clutched their scriptures to their chests even as they were led to their execution, their final act a testament to the book they refused to abandon. These martyrs became heroes of the faith, their stories told and retold, inspiring others to hold firm. By 311 AD, the political landscape of the Roman Empire was beginning to shift. Diocletian had retired, and his successor in the east, Galerius, lay on his deathbed, suffering from a gruesome disease. Perhaps seeing his own mortality, or perhaps recognizing the utter failure of his decade-long campaign to stamp out Christianity, Galerius issued the Edict of Toleration. The decree was a stunning reversal. It officially ended the persecution and granted Christians the right to exist, to rebuild their churches, and to worship their God freely, as long as they prayed for the well-being of the emperor and the state. The Great Persecution was over. The attempt to destroy the Bible had failed. Just 2 years later, in 313 AD, a new chapter began. The Emperor Constantine, after winning a decisive battle he attributed to the power of the Christian God, met with his co-emperor Licinius in Milan. Together, they issued the Edict of Milan, which went even further than Galerius's decree. It proclaimed absolute religious freedom throughout the empire, ordering that all confiscated Christian property, including their churches and their precious scriptures, be returned to them immediately and without cost. The very state that had tried to burn the Bible was now ordering its restoration. It was a political and cultural earthquake. The book that had been hunted and hidden was now brought out into the open, protected by imperial decree. Constantine didn't just tolerate Christianity, he actively promoted it. Recognizing the need for standardized and accessible copies of the scriptures after years of destruction and fragmentation, he commissioned a monumental project. He ordered Eusebius, the bishop of Caesarea and a renowned scholar, to produce 50 new copies of the Bible for the growing churches of his new capital city, Constantinople. These were not to be simple scrolls, but magnificent codices, written on the finest vellum by the most skilled scribes and funded directly from the imperial treasury. The very book that Diocletian had tried to erase from existence was now being mass-produced by the Roman emperor himself. This imperial patronage marked the ultimate turning point in the Bible's story of survival. The book that had been preserved by the poor and the persecuted was now being championed by the most powerful man in the world. The shift was absolute. Within a few short decades, Christianity would become the official state religion of the Roman Empire under Emperor Theodosius I in 380 AD. The Bible, once a symbol of sedition, became the foundational text of Western civilization. Its journey from a prescribed and hunted text to the cornerstone of an empire was complete. The efforts of Diocletian and his successors had not only failed to destroy it, they had inadvertently forged the Christian faith in a crucible of persecution, making it stronger and more resilient than ever before. The story of its survival is a testament not just to the resilience of a book, but to the unwavering conviction of the countless, often anonymous, people who believed its words were worth dying for. They hid it, copied it, and bled for it, ensuring that its story would not be silenced by the fires of an empire.